Before we start, lock your door, check your windows, and if anyone has ever made the hair on the back of your neck stand up for no clear reason, you are going to recognize every single person in today's stories. Let's go. I was vacuuming my house at 9:30 at night with my music playing when I got a knock on my door. My boyfriend was at work, and I was not expecting company, especially so late at night. I turned my music down and realized the door was not locked. Instantly, I was terrified. I am only 4 feet 10, so I had to prop myself up against the wall to look through the peephole and carefully lock the door. More pounding. The man outside my door was no one I recognized. He looked disgruntled, dirty, and quite frightening. He was short and stocky and looked angry. He grew frustrated knowing I had just turned my music down. He heard me lock the door and started calling out, "Ma'am?" More knocking. "Excuse me, ma'am." How did he know I was a woman? I looked around the room and saw my blinds were open and realized he must have been watching me vacuum. Thankfully, my neighbors right across from me opened their doors and the husband asked, "Excuse me, who are you and what are you doing?" Startled, the man fumbled and said, "Oh, good evening, sir. I was just going to offer my carpet cleaning services to her." The husband said, "That's great. She doesn't want it. You need to leave. Right now." He left promptly. Afterward, I called the police, my boyfriend, closed up my blinds, and texted the neighbors to thank them. I paid extra to live on the top floor, but it seems this creep was watching me from below. He had been standing outside watching her through the window before he ever knocked. Now the next story has the most unexpected ending in this entire video, and I promise you, you won't see it coming. Creep in the store, and there's a happy ending to this one. I am 6 feet 8 and a bodybuilder. I have a buzz cut and at least 30 tattoos all over my body. Plot twist. I am a lesbian. This was not really my problem, but I stuck my nose in because I am not a heartless person. People who know me always say the first thing they thought when they met me was, "Holy shit, she is scary." But my nickname is now GG, short for Gentle Giant. That is my background for this story. I was at Target, just there to grab macaroni and cheese and leave. I walked down the aisle and saw a girl backed against the shelf by a man. He was wearing a huge gray coat, which was strange because it was 90 degrees outside. She shot me a look of surprise and alert, then looked back at the guy quickly. I have bad hearing and am almost deaf in one ear, so I could not hear what the man was saying at first. I started walking forward and caught the end of his sentence. He said, "The red one is yours, right? I'll meet you there and we can go back to my place. That sound fun, doll?" "Hey, sorry I took so long. I had to help some lady out. Who's your new friend here?" I said when I got to them. The girl let out a sigh of relief when he turned my way. He looked up at me in confusion, then looked back to her. "Who's this?" he asked. "I'm her girlfriend. What do you want?" I said. "Me and Doll are going to go back to my place," he said, and smiled creepily at her. "No, we are heading back home. Come on, let's go. We are not coming back to this Target. It has a Walmart problem," I said, and watched as she nodded frantically while speed-walking over to me. "Come on, Doll. Are you really going to go with this chick? I'll show you the right side. I bet I can change your mind," he yelled loudly and took off after us. I had already told her I was going to pick her up because I was sure he would come after her. She is only 5 feet 2. As soon as she tapped me, I picked her up and set her on my shoulders. I felt the guy run into me a second later. He was only 5 feet 6 and had no muscle on him. He kind of bounced off and started yelling nonsense while following us. We made it to a store worker who called the police and they took him away in handcuffs. The whole time he was trying to punch me or grab her and failing completely. I stayed with her the rest of the trip and walked her to her car. She gave me her number. That was 2 years ago. We are getting married next week. I genuinely love that story. Okay, from a retail store to a parking lot, because this next one is a reminder that danger does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it's just a man who needs help starting his car. I am 45 in August. This happened when I was 19. Listen to the hairs on the back of your neck. My girlfriend and I were months away from being parents for the first time, and we were both working jobs. I worked in retail as a key holder. She was working as an assistant manager at a place in a local strip mall. After my shift one day, I took the deposit bag, wrapped it up in my work clothes, put all of that in a bag, and went to walk the 5 or so minutes to my girlfriend's work. Just before I got to the door of the mall, a man came up and asked if I could help start his car. He said he needed to get to work, but could not do it himself. Growing up, My family had cars with similar problems, so I said I would help. We walked around the corner of the mall to where a car was sitting. The man said, "So we just need to get in and I'll drive you to my car. I need help starting." The hairs on the back of my neck started to rise. I have ignored gut instincts before, but this was a sensation that very clearly told me, ignore these warnings at your certain peril. I quickly explained that I thought this was going to be a very quick thing, and that I had somewhere to be and was already late. I apologized and walked away from him into the mall, and watched him leave in the car before going to my girlfriend's workplace. I told her we were going to skip our dinner plans and head home immediately. As we were crossing the parking lots to get to the bank, we saw the same man, the one who was supposedly in a hurry to get to work, slowly driving around a Target parking lot, just scoping people out. There is no doubt in my mind I would have regretted getting into that car. There is a good chance I would not be able to type this story today. If your gut instinct ever gives you a feeling that something is wrong, listen to your body. Slow, deliberate, scoping the parking lot. That image is going to stick with me. Now, from a public parking lot to a private home, because the next story is about a 15-year-old who woke up in the middle of the night and saw something she was not supposed to see. Found out my friend's dad is a creep. I was 15 and had just transferred into a new school. I made a friend immediately, and after a few weeks, I asked my mom, and she agreed to let me spend the night. I'm not going to use my friend's real name, so let us call her Kelsey. I got to Kelsey's place, and it was fun. I met her mom, who I absolutely adored, and even managed to make a few jokes with both her parents, even though her dad seemed more partial to grunting. Around 10 that night, we both got sleepy. I had forgotten to bring something to sleep in, so I borrowed a shirt from Kelsey that went down to my knees. We slept in the same bed. I know, probably not ideal for a sleepover, but I trusted my friend. We both passed out. But I woke up sometime later because I could feel the blanket moving. I turned my head and saw a shadowy figure I could just barely make out to be her dad, stepping back from the bed and dropping the blanket. I blinked in his direction and then fell right back asleep. I know, but I was dead tired and too groggy to be properly alarmed. I felt the same thing after I fell asleep again. This time, I didn't move around much as I looked and confirmed. Yes, that was my friend's father, and he was lifting the blanket on my side of the bed. My thighs were exposed because the shirt had ridden up while I slept. I sat up, scaring him away from the blanket again. I finally caught on to what was going on, and to say I was scared was an understatement. I made sure the blanket was tight around my legs and acted like I was still sleepy because I didn't want him to know how aware I was. He moved away from the foot of the bed and stood by the television, telling me some story about how he was just there to turn it down. He stood there for like 3 minutes, just looking back to see if I would lie down again. He eventually left the room, and I grabbed my phone and tried as hard as I could to call my parents. They did not answer, because it was 3 in the morning. As I was trying to reach them, though, I noticed he had never really left the hallway in front of Kelsey's door. He was still waiting for me to fall back asleep, and as such, poked his head into the room every few minutes. At that point, I felt sick. I was the most terrified I had ever been in my life, because I suddenly realized we were the only two awake in the house. I did not want to wake Kelsey. I was too scared, and I did not want to lose my first friend at the new school. I just stayed on my phone all night until she woke up. I made her come with me to the bathroom because I was too nervous to go alone. Eventually, I did tell her what happened. She begged me to tell her mom, and I did. She then came home with me and refused to leave until I told my own mom. Together, they managed to get him out of the house. Kelsey is still one of my closest friends to this day. I am so grateful that I am a light sleeper. Such a small thing, feeling the blanket being lifted. But I am so lucky it woke me up. He could have done a lot worse than look if it was not for that. She stayed awake the entire night just to be safe. That kind of quiet courage deserves to be recognized. Now, from a friend's house to a hotel bathroom, because you should absolutely be checking your hotel room before you undress. Hidden camera in the hotel I was showering in. Our brand new water heater broke down from calcium buildup in the water, so we rented a hotel room so we could all get a shower. My husband and teenage daughters had gone first. While they took their showers, I had already been looking for cameras. Shows and articles warning people to check had me paranoid. My husband had laughed at me, so I thought we were safe. It was not until I was actually standing inside the shower that I saw the camera. You had to see it from a certain angle, wrapped around the light that had a cover over the bottom of it, but an opening all the way around the edges in the middle. I looked up, and there it was. I screamed and my husband came running in. I told him what it was and he checked, and sure enough, he took the bottom cover off, and the camera fell down. It was actually wired to the light and positioned to point down into the shower. My husband ripped it out and marched straight to the front office. A fight ensued. The man running the place got upset that my husband was destroying his room and called the police. My husband is a hothead when he is on a moral mission, and grabbed the man by the collar of his shirt. His mentality was, if I'm going to jail, I'm going to make it worth it. Then the man's wife came out, and by that point I was dressed and there for backup. She wanted to know what was happening, so I told her. She said, "Wait right here." She came back with a knife and started chasing her own husband around with it when the police showed up. The police asked us what happened first. When we explained, they took the owner into custody. They apparently found hundreds of videos in a private area of his bedroom they were using to build a case against him. Check everywhere before you ever undress in a hotel. Everywhere. His own wife came after him with a knife. That is how you know exactly what kind of person he was. Now, something a little different. This next story is one of the quietest entries today, but somehow one of the most disturbing, because she had already been dead for 20 minutes before anyone realized it. She was dead and I did not even know it. About 5 years ago, I was living at home with my parents, and my twin brother was there too. Every morning at about 7, we would both head out for a run. We had mapped out this giant loop, and to make it a bit of a competition, I would run it in one direction, and my twin would run it in the other direction. Part of this loop was on the main street of the city my parents live in. On this main road, there were some apartments hidden by a bunch of trees. The direction I was running, the view of those apartments was blocked by a giant hedge bush, and I could not see the apartments until I was right in front of them. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a woman standing among the trees, staring at me. I immediately got the chills and didn't turn to face her because I did not want to be rude, so I ran on and forgot about it a few minutes later. I passed my twin about 10 minutes later, going in the opposite direction. I got home and my twin was not back yet, so I went about my morning routine, including taking a shower. I got out of the shower and he still had not come back, and I was starting to get a little worried. An hour after I had gotten home, he still was not back and I called him. He told me he was on his way back and he had something he needed to tell me and my parents. He finally got home and told us that as he was running in front of those apartments, he saw a woman hanging from the trees. As soon as it was obvious he had seen her, a man came sprinting from the apartments, wailing and screaming, "No, I can't believe she did this." He grabbed her body, laid her on the ground, and started performing chest compressions. My brother called the police, and they dispatched an ambulance and officers. My brother had to stay for questioning and a witness report and all that. He was obviously troubled by it. Since he was going in the opposite direction from me, he did not have the hedge blocking his view and got a straight-on view of this woman hanging there. It is still hard for me to believe that the woman I saw staring at me out of the corner of my eye was already dead the entire time. I do find it very strange that the husband came running out as soon as it was obvious someone had discovered the body. That is a bit too convenient. But I do not want to say this man killed his wife without any evidence. My brother was never followed up with by the police, leading me to believe the death was ruled a suicide. I just still cannot fathom that if I had turned to face this woman, I would have found her 20 minutes earlier, and that deeply troubles me. She was standing there in the trees, and she was already gone. Take a moment with that. Now we go from a quiet, haunting morning run to a relationship that had red flags from the very beginning, and ended with a headline: I dated a murderer. I had gotten out of an 8-year abusive relationship and met someone on a popular online dating app. I was not looking for anything serious, just someone to go watch a movie or have a drink with every now and then. I had 2 boys and was happy and living a peaceful life on my own after going through a lot. So I met this guy who was just a couple of years older than me. He said he had turned his life around. When he was younger, he had been into gangs and drugs, but now he was into working out and staying fit and doing family activities. I felt protected by him in a way. He was a hard worker, had a son of his own, and loved going to the gym every day. We seemed like a good fit. We went to dinner, movies, normal dating stuff, but he eventually wanted to spend more and more time together, and I was having trouble giving up all of my free time, and he would get really angry about that. After being with a controlling, possessive person for so long, this was obviously a red flag, and after 3 months, I told him I did not want to see him anymore. He said he needed to confess something to me. He admitted he was using steroids, and that was the reason for his mood swings. He cried and said he was sure that was the reason, and was willing to stop if it meant he could have another chance. I agreed, but only under the condition that we remained friends. Things were okay for a while. We saw each other maybe every other week, and he started wanting to see me every week. I told him I was not interested in being anything more than friends. He kept insisting I give him another chance, and I kept insisting I was not interested. I eventually stopped talking to him because I got tired of him asking why I did not contact him every day, and telling me that is what friends do. He would always ask about my whereabouts, and ask for pictures of who I was hanging out with. I told him that is not what friends do. He insisted he was just innocently curious. 6 months passed without any contact. I was happy and living my life. One particular night when my youngest son was at his dad's, I went out to a local bar with friends. My oldest son, who was 13 at the time, was home alone, so I left a little early to be home around 10 at night. I lay down and go to sleep. I am dead asleep when I suddenly feel someone slowly sit on my bed. I'm lying there wondering why my son would come sit on my bed so slowly. He would not. I turn around, and it is not him. It is the man I had been dating, lying down in my bed next to me. I sat up and asked him how he got in. He was not answering. He said, "I needed to talk to you." I said, "When you need to talk to someone, you don't sneak into their room. You call them, you leave a note, literally anything but this. I needed to talk to you before it's too late." I did not even entertain the before it's too late part, because I was furious, but something told me to keep my cool. I sat up and said, "Look, I really want to talk to you too, but not like this. Please just leave, and I promise we will talk tomorrow. Call me tomorrow." He got up and walked over to my side of the bed and started rubbing my shoulders, slowly making his way to my neck. He said, "Do you really want to talk?" I looked him in the eyes and said, "Yes, I've been wanting to talk to you, but not like this. Please call me tomorrow." He stared at me while rubbing my neck, then let go, said okay, and then this man walked over to my patio door, slid it open, and jumped over my patio wall. That is exactly how he had gotten in. I checked on my son. He had no idea anything had happened. I locked every door and did not sleep the rest of the night. The next day I texted him and told him if I ever saw him near me or in my complex, I would call the police and to never contact me again. I knew he had a gun, and I was afraid of what he would do if I called the cops right then, so I did not. Either way, he left me alone and I did not hear from him for years. 4 years later, I was going through social media and saw his face and the suggested people to follow. I clicked on the picture and noticed it looked like a jail photo. I scrolled down and his most recent post was his address, a prison address for family members to write to. So I searched his name. Article after article, all with the same headline: "Man arrested on suspicion of killing girlfriend." About 2 years after him and I dated, he shot and killed the woman he was seeing. And I feel terrible thinking about whether there was anything I could have done to stop it. He only got 12 years for her murder. 12 years for a human life. Let that sit with you. Now for the final 2 stories today, and I want to warn you, these are the 2 longest and most deeply unsettling of the entire video. First, a friendship that quietly unraveled into something no one saw coming on Halloween Day. My crazy friend ended up becoming a murderer. So today has been a particularly slow day at work, and I have been killing time reading these stories. Maybe enough time has passed, and I can share mine. I had this friend who was really into the occult. Unfortunately, I was the one who got him interested in it. We had a mutual appreciation of the paranormal and all things weird, so I thought the subject would interest him. He started going deep into the subject, to the point where he would not talk about anything else. He would actually interrupt a conversation and force the subject back to occult matters. Rude, but sometimes people go through phases where their interest is all they want to talk about. It was mostly forgivable at first. I should mention that this particular friend did not have a very large friend circle. His depression and introverted nature kept him inside a lot. He did not have the best luck in relationships. His world was kind of small. I did enjoy hanging out with him, so I did my best to be a good friend. I did not want to just brush him off, because he was acting a little weirder than normal. Honestly, for the longest time, he was a totally normal guy. We would chat and play games together on the PlayStation. Sometimes we would go see movies, with my boyfriend coming along. We all hung out at the park, we went swimming. Overall, we had a good time. Things started to go downhill when he started to use a powerful hallucinogenic drug called dimethyltryptamine. Personally, I think psychedelics are tools that can offer insight into your life, but they should be treated with respect. My friend got to the point where he was making it himself, and was using it daily, multiple times a day. Imagine what that does to a person when they are doing it 30 or more times in a single day. He started telling me he was the reincarnated Egyptian god Osiris. He said he was seeing Egyptian hieroglyphs all over the place in waking life. He had hour-long conversations with entities in his bedroom, even when he was not using drugs. I told him he needed to take a serious break, no substances at all for a few months, so he could find solid footing in reality again. I was still hanging out with him at this point because he obviously needed some help and did not have many people who could give it. He was also the black sheep of the family, so he was not getting support from them either. I reached out to his sister on social media to express my concerns and pushed her to talk him into getting some professional help, because he was slipping past the point of no return. I will jump forward now to the part where things start to get really uncomfortable. My boyfriend had made plans to hang out with him at the park. I did not really want to go. I felt like I needed a break from his ranting. But my boyfriend said he was not all that bad, and we went anyway. We got to the park and he was his usual self, ranting about Egypt and belief systems that only he knew the truth about. He also had a large hunting knife that he kept fidgeting with the whole time we were on a walk. He told us that he had been using it in ceremonial magic, and that it helped to banish negative thoughts. He would take the knife and make stabbing motions near his heart or head, like he was mock-stabbing himself, all while holding a conversation with me or my boyfriend. We were both on edge and did not know what to say or do. We had to walk back to our car together, since we were on a trail and could not just say goodbye mid-walk. My boyfriend had the bright idea that we should get lunch after our walk. I was giving him every look I could that said absolutely not, but either it was not working or he was ignoring it. Either way, we ended up in the car going to get lunch. I was driving. My boyfriend was in the passenger seat. Our friend was in the back. As we were heading through a busy part of town, I heard the distinctive sound of a belt buckle being undone. I glanced back out of the corner of my eye and confirmed what I suspected. This man had his pants completely down in our back seat and was doing something extremely inappropriate in full view while we were driving through heavy traffic. Instantly, I felt sick. All the nervous energy I had been carrying throughout the day surged into my head. I was trying not to shake. I was trying to ignore it and just drive. I had a freeze response, I think. The whole time I kept thinking about that large knife he had in his pocket. He was completely off his rocker. I was afraid to say anything because I did not know how he was going to react. Unbelievably, my boyfriend did not seem to notice and kept rambling on about something. I could not focus on a word because my thoughts were completely fixed on driving and acting like I did not know what was happening in my back seat. We got to the restaurant and my boyfriend ran inside. I was left alone in the car with our friend. I acted like I was browsing my phone, watching and listening as hard as I could. We did not talk. My boyfriend came back and I said I was tired. It had been a long day. Let's drop him off. So we drove back to his car. He did not get out. He just sat there. I had to get a little direct and ask him to please get out and go home. He got out, walked over to his car, and reached into a bag on the passenger seat. Then he walked back over toward us with a loaded pistol. I do not know why I did what I did next, but I was so angry, I just got out of my car and walked right up to him. I was maybe 3 feet away. I could clearly see it was loaded. I kept asking him over and over, "What are you doing?" I told him to get in his car and go home. He just cried and had this wild look in his eye. For whatever reason, he got back into his car and drove off. I told my boyfriend we were never seeing this person again. No contact at all. A few months passed. He moved to the Nashville area in Tennessee. Occasionally, he sent messages through the gaming platform or texted my phone. I ignored all of it. I reached out to his sister again to let her know he had a gun. She managed to get it from him somehow. Then one night, around 11, my phone rang. A man on the other end said he was a detective calling from Gallatin, Tennessee. My heart stopped. Apparently, my former friend had stabbed someone to death on Halloween Day. I do not know all the details, and the articles about it are sparse. The whole thing is surreal, and I am left feeling like I am lucky I did not get shot that summer. He drove away that day. He was still out there, and somewhere in Tennessee, someone who is not as lucky did not get to drive away. Our final story today is the one that had the most people in the comments saying they had to stop and take a breath before finishing it. Tinder date tried to kill me. This was November of 2016 in Glasgow, Scotland. I was desperate, I will admit. I had been single and alone for some time, and it was driving me a little crazy. That is when I matched with Laura online. She came across as a very sweet girl, but was in a hurry to meet me. So I agreed. She insisted we go to the pub. No fancy dates were necessary as far as she was concerned, and I didn't mind that. At first glance I knew she looked different from her photos, but I didn't mind. I gave her a chance. We got talking, and after a few drinks, things started to get more intimate. She asked me to talk more about myself, my job, my life. Then she slipped her foot out of her shoe and started rubbing my leg with her bare foot under the table. She asked about my personal life and was very forward about wanting to take things further. She said she had her preferences and had done things I would never have imagined. "Want to see what I can do?" she said. "Let's go to my place." At this point I was starting to feel very drunk, which surprised me since I had only had a few drinks. My head felt heavier than the rest of my body. It was like the ground was moving beneath my feet. The rest is a blur. I could not even remember getting into the taxi, but I do remember falling down some stairs and her laughing from above me. "Come on," she said, "get your sexy self up here." I struggled up the stairs and then blacked out. When I became aware again, I was in her bedroom. I tried to sit up only to find my arms and legs tied to the bed. Then she entered the room. I will not describe what followed in full detail, but she performed acts on me, then moved to a different part of the room. I had drifted off and was woken up by a strange sound. I looked down and saw her wrapping my legs in cling film, plastic wrap, tightly, from my feet upward. "Hush now," she said when I started screaming. "This is the best bit." She kept wrapping me upward. By the time she reached my chest, I could barely breathe. She placed a ball of plastic in my mouth to silence me. I was struggling with everything I had to dislodge it. Eventually, I was completely wrapped from head to toe. She leaned down and told me this was my punishment for being terrible in bed, and that she had many other victims just like me, all wrapped up, all waiting to die. She left the room. I screamed as best I could. I felt myself slowly fading. I woke up the next day with people surrounding me. They had removed most of the plastic wrap and resuscitated me. I was not actually in Laura's flat. I was in an old-fashioned hotel. The police were all over me asking questions about what happened. I tried to show them her profile on the app, but she had already deleted it. I am grateful to the people who saved my life. I am still on the road to recovery mentally. It took me years to finally trust people enough to go on dates again. I just hope she is not still out there, and I hope there are not others who are not as lucky as me. 10 stories, 10 real people, and every single one of them is alive right now because of one thing: they paid attention. To the hairs on the back of their neck, to a gut feeling, to something that did not feel right. Never ignore that feeling. It might be the most important thing you ever listen to. If these stories stayed with you, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm to show this video to more people, and these stories deserve to be heard. And if you want more real stories like these every week, subscribe and turn on notifications. I'll see you in the next one.